Salutations, substandard film lovers, if there is such a thing. This is Automatic for Automatic Games. And what you're about to see is the director commentary version of Bread Night, mistitled in its own menu, Night of the Living Bread. Essentially the premise there does apply. In that it's kind of a parody of Night of the Living Dead, but obviously it's bread. It was inspired by a short that I think I saw in the 90s, hence us officially naming it Bread Night. But anyways, we're going to take a look at first a preview, and then we'll get on to the main film. I'll be talking throughout this whole endeavor, so if you want to see the version without my commentary, it's also up on my channel. Having said that, with no further ado, let's take a look at the preview. And the preview is for a film called Johnny America. And in fact, this was a series of films. I think we did maybe 4, 5 of these Johnny America movies.
A film by Regis Contractor.
Essentially, it's about a detective, a super detective with a real 1970s vibe. And that's yours truly, who had the title role. I know what you're thinking. The director played the title role. That's kind of cheap, isn't it? In truth, I wasn't the only director. I would do these movies with my buddy Matt Ryan. A man that, as of uploading this, that actually passed away a week ago, just about, a little less than a week ago, from the date that I'm actually uploading this video. So, in a sense, this is in honor of him, and in a sense, this director commentary is kind of incomplete without his input. As one might imagine, there's no way to get that input at this point. And that is altogether tragic.
Look at the free nipple.
And there will be cursing, and there will be, I guess, nudity, if you want to count Kyle's nipple there.
Johnny, goddamn, motherfucking America.
And the gentleman that was just talking there, that was the aforementioned Matt Ryan. There he is, trailing the group as they head inside to see the evil crime lord Dan McCann. But all of these people were good friends. All of them, the ones that are still with us, I do tend to keep in contact with most of those folks. But essentially, yeah, this is a preview for the Johnny America series. I don't think that I'll ever upload Johnny America, and so we'll see. I don't know. I guess we'll play it by ear. There's Mike McGrainer and a girl named Jen Roberts, an ex-girlfriend of mine, who actually edited this particular preview. She went to CCAD, that is to say, Columbus College of Art and Design. I went to school there as well, but we actually met each other through working for the same photographer. Now, despite all this talk of Columbus College of Art and Design or photography, I am well aware that the quality of this video is subpar. I would say that was as intended, but I don't think we had many intentions when it came to producing these. We just kind of did it. But it is something to see all of this again. It's honestly, aside from a party that I threw last night, where we did watch this. Prior to that, it had been years since I've seen this preview or the forthcoming movie. So this is very nostalgic for me. Chuck Nova. And that's that guy's real nickname. His given name is Kyle, but Chuck Nova. but Janky the Clown, he was always a crowd favorite. As far as the crowd that watched Johnny American movies was concerned, obviously that was always local. Now, of course, I'll never be able to monetize these videos because, you know, in the background there you hear Good Times by Chic. And I also think that during Bread Night, we use one copyrighted song as well. So, my intention is not to monetize or make any money off of this. My intention is essentially to share it. But yeah, there is no excuse for my behavior, folks. Brian Von Brockovich. That's not even what it says on screen.
Johnny America.
So there's that, folks. And you can also see that it's directed by a fellow named Regis Contrartra, obviously a contrived name. I guess with such low-quality videos, I didn't want to take credit for directing them, so we blame it on a made-up character named Regis Contrartra. It's been years since I've seen Regis. I hope he's doing well. Anyways, let's get right into the movie, shall we? Now, the soundtrack for this movie was produced by a friend of mine, Peter Addington. He's also in the film. And so I remain grateful for that. He was also the guitarist in a band that I was in called Spinwash All-Stars. This here is Matt Salter. He plays a couple roles, and that is Bridget Bennett. Both of those individuals remain close personal friends of mine. And this banter at the beginning, you know, there was no script. So it was essentially, we would get ready to film, and we'd kind of just run through what we were going to say. The actors had input, and they pretty much just went with it, you know? It was certainly not set in stone. In fact, there was very little preparatory work involved in this project, and I think it shows.
Damn it.
Now, certainly this is the first hint that there's trouble, and indeed that man that just fell has a loaf of bread up against his chest. It's not very apparent. I don't think we wanted it to be apparent, only to illustrate that everything was not as it should be.
I hate your mother for having you.
She hates the people that brought him here. I don't even know what that means. But I gotta say, I like the line.
Why are we stopped?
Well, this must be it right here.
So this is when I lived on OSU's campus. So my house is actually in the background there. This is a garage that was across the street. As it turned out, my wife and I ended up owning a business that this parking garage, was attached to. It's where we'd park when we ran the cafe that we ran. Now this here is actually my brother-in-law. He wasn't at the time. The police officer, that is. Sir, you smell like Shirley Temple. And then Carmen, that's the character, he puts the car in reverse and starts to back away first. Then he puts it in drive. There's quite a few little faux pas of that nature. Now, just around the bend, you're going to hear some added dialogue on the part of Bridget, and it doesn't come across too well. You actually don't hear it very well.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. In fact, when I think of sex with you, it gives me this burning sensation in my lobes.
When she thinks of sex with him,
On hot, black
it gives her a burning sensation in her lobes, like feet on hot black asphalt. That was part of the line, anyways. Generally, just expressing how much she dislikes Carmen.
I believe it's a dead prostitute.
The dead prostitute. This, in fact, is my sister-in-law playing the dead prostitute. Coincidentally, In one of our Johnny America films, she also played a dead prostitute. I mean, some people, I don't want to say she's typecasted, because in real life she is not a dead prostitute, but really, why does Carmen think she's a dead prostitute? She's not dead. There's nothing to indicate that she was a prostitute.
Carmen, what's wrong?
I think that Carmen's just a little presumptuous. That carries on as if it's a theme in this film. So here comes a loaf of bread. Carmen, unawares of the danger, picks the bread up, discusses how it's harmless. Oh, but it's not. You can even see the dental floss that we used to pull around the bread. Yeah, it's not fishing line, it was dental floss. We just run to the store prior to filming, grab ourselves a lot of bread and a lot of dental floss, and you know, the cashiers never asked any questions. So good on them. So our bread handlers, as we call them, would either tug on the bread using dental floss line, or they'd just chuck the bread. And Carmen's dying words there were, what's happening? What's happening? What's happening? Now, I've often thought post-production that Marjorie, the character in the car currently, she'd have been fine had she stayed in the car. I don't see how Bread would have gotten inside. But, you know, she is the protagonist. She's in a panic. That means there's an expectation that she'll make poor decisions and she'll fall a lot. If we don't count the dead prostitute, I still ain't calling her that, because who's to say Carmen is the first on-screen victim of the bread. Now here goes Marjorie. Oh, first fall. Yep. So good on her. She actually did abide by that horror movie expectation. And it's interesting, there's a second fall. It's interesting too, she's wearing a black wig, and she doesn't wear it throughout the whole movie. I think the intent was that she wear the wig through the whole movie, but once it falls off, we just kind of decided, screw it. Marjorie must have been wearing a wig. Oh, this bread in the foreground is well aware that it might have a new victim. So it jumps into a hiding spot as Marjorie makes her way in, and yeah, there you go. She already lost the wig. In fact, she picks up the wig and chucks it aside. That is also a common line in this poorly produced film. Hello. A lot of people walking around and saying hello. That telephone didn't have a cord. Hate when that happens. She drops sausages on the floor. I guess she intends to use that frying pan as a weapon. As you can see, the loaves of bread are closing in on her. And enter, oh, what's this guy's name? Mac, I think is the character's name. Mac is played by yours truly. Just kind of I don't know. Yes, again, I play one of the central characters in my own rudimentary film. The Mac is armed with a baseball bat. More bread tumbling down the stairs. This ain't good, folks. It ain't good. You know, they gotta clear out that bread and secure this house if they aim to survive. And this house, sure enough, this is the apartment that I lived in at the time. It's like an old 1920s build on campus. And I gotta work on my swing. Perhaps the problem with my golf swing is utilizing a baseball bat. I gave up golf anyways. Well, that's one way of fighting the bread, is to go ahead and take a bite. Now, I do want to make sure that my commentary is heard over the movie. Again, if you just want to watch the raw movie, I don't know why you would. You can find that video on my channel as well. So all is relatively quiet now. These two are going to introduce themselves. Bread everywhere. I mean, our apartment was always a mess, but more so when we set about shooting one of our little films.
Pull yourself together, okay? We're all a little crazy. Do you have a car?
My car's gone.
You have a bicycle, a scooter, or a skateboard, or roller skates. We're gonna need some kind of transportation.
I mean, had they only a pair of roller skates, they could get out of there.
Pull yourself together.
And one might wonder, were we intoxicated when doing this? Yes, yes we were.
What's your name?
Now, a lot of times, for a lot of these shots,
Audrey?
rarely myself, since I was in this so much, but oftentimes it would be Matt Ryan, the other director, that is, or it'd be a fellow named Jared Manzer, as he's known on my channel.
My car's gone too.
Would often do the shooting for us.
My car's gone too. There are probably about 2 dozen of us. We heard the first reports on the radio.
But I lived in this apartment with a fellow named Pete and a fellow named Chris. So the three of us lived here really just for a summer. We were able to, sublet the place in between semesters, and it was all blur, folks. I'm not gonna lie. We had some good times there, but for the most part, yeah, it was a blur.
Some fancy foot fella thought maybe.
Some fancy foot fella, Max says.
You thought he could. Well, Marjorie thought he could bust it open.
And he's telling a story about how this guy, a guy with a weapon, a 12 gauge, I guess, opened up a bread delivery truck, which is something that you would not want to do in the strange scenario where bread comes back to life and starts killing people. But again, this kind of mirrors a scene in Night of the Living Dead. Once the guy shows up in Night of the Living Dead, and he and the main, I'm thinking of the remake. I think it was a 1989 or 1990 remake. And the protagonist, who is female, is joined by this fellow that kind of shares a similar story. That zombies had been loaded into the back of a truck, and some guy, some hotshot with a fully automatic weapon, opened up the back of the truck to let another zombie in. You can only imagine what happened. Well, something similar happened in this case. You don't open up a bread truck when bread is coming to life and killing people.
We're not gonna die! If you would stop looking out, we might live. Do you read me? Do you hear the Morse code? Listen, I'll tell you what.
And every character in this is, to some extent, is hysterical. I don't mean to say that they're funny. That's for you to decide, but I think that they're all hysterical in their own right. There's something wrong with just about everybody in this film.
They're gonna be mad.
Mental problems abound.
I'm gonna go check upstairs, okay? And
I mean, we're drinking beer right there on camera.
don't cry.
So suffice to say, we were intoxicated.
Red guts everywhere. You just gotta watch your step if you're gonna stand up. That's all, Mom.
It is true, you gotta watch your step. It's evidenced by Mac falling. But that's not the full extent of his losing his footing, as demonstrated here. And I guess what's kind of funny about that is people that were not in that scene and people that were just there to help were all in the living room and did not know that I was going to fall off the stairs. So when I did, they kind of bit their knuckles rather than laugh out loud. You can clearly see the dental floss in so many scenes, like that last one. It's very evident. I think you can contrast it with this scene, where it's not as evident. I mean, I can see it now, but I've seen this many times. There you go. Oh. Well, she saw that. She saw the bread hit the window, which adds a question mark in terms of why she freaked out so much when it reappeared. But she sure as shit did. Running upstairs to find Mac. Or just to hide in a closet without a door.
I'm here. I'm just real nervous and there's bread everywhere.
He pissed himself. Now what happens when you're shooting an indie movie and one of your actors spills a beer all over his pants? Well, I guess you cover it up by saying that he peed himself. That's precisely what we did in this case. I also think it's interesting that she was going to use her hand to dry up the urine. It's different. It's not the most traditional approach.
Doors, Marjorie.
No, you don't. I think the bathroom's right there. Don't open anymore.
He's got to go in the bathroom and clean up, I think, is his agenda here. Commenting that the door feels warm. I don't know what that has to do with anything. But that wasn't the bathroom. That, in fact, is, obviously.
Nobody said.
Watch your step. Well, never mind. So enter a high school friend of mine, and of course this was after high school, named Tom. Bridget, she's got that screen down. Yeah, but this was a fella named Tom that I graduated with from high school, that is.
Mary Ellen?
He went on to be a pretty accomplished actor in his college years. Of course, he's playing an older woman, but he does a fine job, in my estimation.
Slices, bread.
Another character that is, arguably hysterical. Not quite of sound mind. Just talking about ham sandwiches and cantaloupe, bread coming through the window, and terror or hilarity ensues. Now we introduce Pete. Pete was one of my two roommates when I lived here. He is playing the police officer. I think it was Officer Randall was the name. And this cameo, this is a buddy named Kurt.
Yeah, well, what's an artist like me
And
do anyway?
and yes, no special effects. He just did what you think he did. I guess my only, statute of limitations is clearly over for something like that. So we can give you a full disclosure. Yeah, he did chuck the bottle, and it did break. But this is a college university campus, and shit like that was par for the course. So Pete there, I have not seen him since I lived in that apartment. It's probably after doing this film, he wanted nothing more to do with us. Who knows? He lost his hat, and you can't lose your hat. You gotta have your cover if you're a police officer. And this is Kelly. I've known Kelly for the better part of my life. As should now be expected, her character's out of her mind too. This is interesting. That is one tough loaf of bread, as evidenced by the fact that the police officer's baton literally just split at the handle from hitting it. That was not intended. We really didn't want one of our batons to break.
Mac, your hair grew back.
Now there's a good reason Mac's hair kind of grew back.
Talk about hairstyles.
And her hairstyle's different now. Essentially that's because, I don't know, this is 2-3 weeks later. You know, we filmed this over a course of, I don't know, month and a half tops. So in terms of continuity, oh shit. And this is my other roommate at the time, Chris. So it was myself, Chris, and Pete. And Chris was playing a character named John McCann, who apparently was upstairs hiding in the attic the whole time. He may not have heard the screams from downstairs. What I just did was completely inexplicable, folks. I have no explanation for it.
Trapped. Here. Well, I'm trapped with that woman over there. What woman? Woman. Well, her name's Marjorie.
And John McCann is going to talk about how to get Marjorie upstairs. And he's kind of a dick.
I think her fiance is dead.
Well, you seem to have no luck with the bride. I've got a safe haven upstairs. I've cleared the place out. We seem to be okay.
Well,
Hey, you got a wheelbarrow or a pitchfork or something we can get her upstairs with?
A wheelbarrow or a pitchfork in order to get this girl upstairs. You know, that's not typical. It's not necessarily the first tools you would think of to move an unconscious person. Certainly the pitchfork. Maybe a wheelbarrow. Nonetheless, he's not very kind. Which is ironic considering Bridget is a rather petite girl. Nonetheless, he's just talking about how he doesn't want to carry somebody upstairs. But, you know, I guess it's true that no matter how petite you are, carrying dead weight like that just is not a convenience, to say the least. Christ, my performance in this is somewhat embarrassing, folks. My shoes, I should point out my shoes. Those, I think they were loaners, I can't recall. They were golf cleats. So, you know, when I'm slipping around the floor and all that, that's actually very easy to accomplish. No comment on whether or not I tore up the hardwood floors or cleats around the house. Likely I did, but again, we were only there for a summer, so let's be frank, we didn't give a shit. Now, we are currently on the 3rd story of the house, and that's an important thing to keep in mind. Because later, he drops her there. I'm sorry, he drops her. She hits her head. At the same time, her leg flips up and hits him right in the nuts. And that was not scripted, of course. Obviously, there was no script, right? But I just thought it was kind of funny that, yeah, he may have hit her head, but apparently she got him right back.
I need you to get up. I need you to follow me.
Now, you know, the puzzle pieces are kind of coming together. This girl, Mary Ellen, is there to see her Aunt Ethel. On Wednesdays, they have ham sandwiches and cantaloupe. So that explains why the older woman, portrayed by Tom upstairs, is talking about ham sandwiches and cantaloupe. So too is Mary Ellen here.
And see now, she can't move too well. She's probably a goner. We need to get out of here.
Meanwhile, Officer Randall is being awful presumptuous. I mean, he kind of throws out that your aunt's probably old and senile. She's a goner. She can't get around too well. He doesn't know any of this shit. Of course, she doesn't take kindly to that, so she attacks him, draws his gun.
Don't move, motherfucker!
And her demeanor changes substantially. Meanwhile, he's making like quail noises, I guess. Yeah, it's kind of pathetic little quail noises. How far they fall. Apparently, Mary Ellen is uncomfortable with firearms, so she's gonna lose that.
I'm gonna leave it right here for you.
Which is kind of a shame. That firearm could come in handy. And so she enters her Aunt Ethel's house. Meanwhile, Officer Randall is gonna do his best to regain composure.
Randall here, I'm on the 600 block of Maple Street. We're all clear.
Gather up any remaining residents and head to the local safe place. Caravan will be heading out. Robin's in the nest. Over.
Cop.
Robin's in the nest, and that dispatcher, in fact, that was Kelly, the same girl that played Mary Ellen just seconds ago. You know, she was there. We needed it. We needed somebody to dispatch her, and so she did that. Certainly, Officer Randall is humiliated, as should we all be that were involved in this project, but no, I mean his character is humiliated. However, he finds his gun, and so that's a plus. You know, I mean, I imagine he'd get written up for losing that. And so she's safely inside. She's looking for her Aunt Ethel. I don't know, she mistakes a loaf of bread for her Aunt Ethel. Why would Aunt Ethel be up above the cabinets anyways? Who knows? Who the hell knows? Unless she catches it in the door, and again, she has that split personality thing about to take place. She's real timid, right? And then all of a sudden, there's this.
Fucker.
She is a strange cat. Not in reality. Believe it or not, all the people involved in this film are very sane people. She stopped to do kind of your photo pose there. Unexpected. I guess that's one thing that can be said about Brett Knight. Expect the unexpected. Now, of course, this is the room that houses Aunt Ethel, or what's left of her after her encounter with multiple loaves of bread. And her niece sees what's left and is clearly distraught. Yep, that's not good. That's a bad deal. Aunt Ethel versus Bread. Bread wins. And certainly the best thing to do at this juncture is to close that door, at least, because, I mean, there's an open window there. I don't know how Brett is getting up to the second floor, but it is. So Mac, yours truly, has to get Mary Ellen and get the hell out of this room.
She don't look good at all. This looks dangerous, right? Let's get out of here.
A sound observation by Mac. Not only that bread looks dangerous, but that Aunt Ethel does not look very good at all. Both are true. Enter Officer Randall. And this whole hello bit cracked me up then, it cracks me up now. You know, we didn't tell him to do this, or necessarily how to act. He just kind of... I think that was a phone he picked up for a second, and then dropped. And certainly he's in here to find Mary Ellen, to get her aboard the buses, You know, basically send her out with the refugees.
Hello?
Why he says hello to an open refrigerator, I don't know. Maybe Mary Ellen's in there. And he eats some of that damn sausage. And frankly, that's kind of disgusting, because that sausage has been in there for well over a week. It's not this. Yes, it is the same sausage that is knocked out of that frying pan in an earlier scene. But again, that was shot a week, 2 weeks earlier. And yet, my roommate Pete sees no harm in eating it. So he hears a noise downstairs. And like any good horror movie cop, he's gonna investigate the noise in a dank cellar. I mean, let's be honest, you cannot expect the police officer in a horror movie to be long for this world. He sees Bread down below. He's got a plan. Solid plan. That loaf of bread is crushed. And if only that were the only loaf down here in the basement. You know, the fact that Mary Ellen doesn't want to be found seems to not even play into this guy's reasoning. Then again, after her attacking him, who's to say he wants to find her to save her? Maybe he wants to exact some kind of sick revenge. Now, after all, every character in this low-budget, I almost said masterpiece. Oh, I want to see who's sharp out there. I don't know if anybody caught that white box that appeared on the screen. It's hard to catch. It's only there for a second. It's not very dominant either, so points and kudos if you manage to catch that. That is part and parcel of this being filmed on VHS in 2001, and there were tracking issues. Honestly, I don't know why that white box appeared. The door opens up behind him, and it's Schwebels. He should have known, he says.
Don't you understand, Schwebels? You're bad. You're human beings. We eat you.
I love that he's the only character that just lays it out like that. Don't you get it? You're bread. We're human beings. We eat you. It matters not. The bread is not intimidated. In fact, it probably just angers these particular loaves. And yeah, that is the fate of Officer Randall. Here we
Ladies and
go.
gentlemen, if you're just joining us, this is Levy Kincaid reporting. We apologize for that brief interruption. Right now, the U.S. government has confirmed that 1/3 of the United States is suffering from an extreme epidemic of mammoth proportions.
Extreme epidemic of mammoth proportions.
Is now confirmed as dangerous. It's becoming reanimated. Earlier, we issued a report saying stay indoors. That has now been retracted. We want you to go to your local safe houses. Whether
Now this guy, he's been a friend of mine for a long time. In fact, I've made characters in his honor for some of my series. His YouTube handle is Ham Radio. The guy's funny as hell, and frankly, he steals the show, if one is to consider this a show. He plays a broadcaster named Levy Kincaid. And just like any other part, this is not scripted, so I think he just did a stellar job in terms of ad-libbing this stuff. And again, we talk about it just before we started shooting, but boy, improv is his strong suit.
Once again, these locations under martial law are Duluth, Austin, Punxsutawney, Winston-Salem, and Marlborough County. I'm also just getting the sense that we have an expert in the field of bread.
A bunch of cities and a county seem to be the areas affected.
In Israelism, and his name is Professor from Stromberg, MD. He will be here shortly. Until then, we ask you to stay tuned and stay away from all kitchens. Please, once again, we retract the report to stay indoors. We want you to go to your local safe houses and,
You don't know what you're
In fact,
talking
what's kind of sad is I'm running the
No,
camera
nothing.
in that particular scene, and you can actually hear me laugh at some of what Ham is saying.
You just don't know what you're dealing with. They'll kill you all. All of you.
Now, what you're about to see is a particularly creepy scene, one that Chris there actually is ashamed of to this day. I talked to him last night, and this is the one scene that he was like, damn, that particular scene. And I still have nightmares about that. It is the proverbial groping scene, not to mention that he peeks under the skirt. Now, just so you don't think less of us, the actress playing Marjorie was totally on board with this. It might have been her idea. In fact, I don't recall, but nonetheless, no breasts were hurt in the filming of this video. But it is an exceedingly cringy scene, one that Chris there is that he's still not very proud of.
Yeah, it's safe in here.
Okay, so Mac is leading Mary Ellen back upstairs.
No ham sandwiches.
What the hell are you talking about?
What the hell are you talking about? Mac actually has a moment of sanity there.
Well, what the heck was it?
Oh, it was just her.
I need that.
No, I need it.
I don't know why she needs the crowbar, or why they're fighting,
What the heck is that?
but Mac's had enough.
Okay.
And so she's going to go back there and recover in the background, although I wouldn't necessarily say she's recovering, because she's really just up to her screwball antics there in the background.
No, it's just her.
And she is drinking beer. As was the case with the entire production, everybody's drinking beer when they get the chance. Don't really know what she's doing now. But Mac just said it. He said a lot of people are kind of crazy about the bread. And that can be said for virtually everybody in the cast. I would argue that the most sane character is the reporter for Channel 3, Levy Kincaid. Everyone else is just downright nut job.
Okay, I'm sorry. Well, I'm sorry. My name's Mac. Good to meet you.
And you know, when it comes to the audio, it's like, I can even hear popping in the background. There's nothing I can do about that. Of course, again, this is from a VHS tape, so the quality leaves much to be desired. The whole endeavor leaves much to be desired. But don't think that I'm not already aware of that.
Well, Miss McCann, I just kind of think you like women that are passed out.
Yeah, not at all. Although I'd like to see that one as well.
A lot of shots like that, too. You can clearly tell we're standing by for a scene for things to start rolling. And yet it starts rolling before we get the signal to act.
Me and your blondie here have been watching Mr. Kincaid on
It only adds to the B-movie quality, I think.
Hey, Wallace.
If one were to call that a quality.
What are we supposed to
They
do?
say, usual banter, blah, blah, blah. Go run, save yourselves. Get to the safe house and, whatever.
Safe house?
Yeah, he mentioned someplace. I forget what he said.
Oh, Marjorie, there's a safe house. She's gonna walk
John McCann forgets what he said. Something about a safe house. No need to abide by what the news is telling you. And what better way to wake a chick up than to go ahead, plug her nose, and pour beer down her throat?
You should have listened to Mr. Kincaid.
All of you, just shut up!
Wow, Marjorie finally putting her foot down. And there's those tracking issues, which seem to come with a big white rectangle.
Give me a minute.
I don't know. It's just the technology of the day, I guess. I think he's just flattered that she said pull yourself together, which was his favorite thing to say. That's one way of reasoning with Mac, I guess.
I'm fine. I'm going to be strong, Carmen. I'm going to be strong.
And she's talking to Carmen, who's been dead since the beginning of the movie. Which is bizarre. You know, just in case you thought she had it all together. A line like that comes across where you're like, oh, hell, she's talking to the dead guy. The dead guy that she didn't even like. Although, he was her husband, or fiancé, I should say. Maybe it was an arranged marriage. Who's to say? Now, Mary Ellen's putting Band-Aids on her leg. I don't know what happened to her leg, but maybe it's splinters from that busted baton. No, it can't be because... Oh, either way, she put Band-Aids on her socks. Curious? Curious to say the least.
Don't be scared of me. I'm Marjorie.
And she said not the Ferris wheel and Cousin Clyde, no. I don't know what kind of thoughts she's conjuring up from her past, but... And I guess I missed it, but Marjorie says to this girl, she says, I'm Marjorie, Carmen's wife. Well, Mary Ellen doesn't know who the fuck Carmen is. And what's funny about this is Kelly, the girl that's playing Mary Ellen there, that's talking, she's actually a remarkable actress, but she's almost purposefully conjuring up some bad acting, which I just love.
If there's a radio downstairs,
I'd like to tell you that's everyone's excuse.
call for help.
No! I'm not going downstairs! No! Oh!
Hey, should not go downstairs.
You know, John McCann's plan seems to be for everybody to stay up here in his little attic hideaway. But
There's a reason he's dead.
But who can trust this guy? Captain Feely.
Especially you.
He's about to say especially Mary Ellen, but then he turns it on Mac when he sees Mac hug Marjorie.
Look at him like this great monster attacking and killing. I see a new future. Right. Let me show you something.
This book.
It's the Book of the Bread.
The Book of the Bread. The Necma Bredicott. And yes, she just felt my ass. That was kind of something I had forgotten about.
The Book of the Bread. Look at these.
Bizarre.
Look closely here. Look real closely. These are ancient scrolls of wisdom which I wrote myself.
Ancient scrolls of wisdom that he wrote himself back in the times of Babylonia. Obviously somebody put a can of beer or something on that particular drawing. You can see. Oh well.
He thinks he has it all worked out, just like his horse.
And what's more, these pictures are not in the book. Technically they are. They're just pictures that he apparently slid into the book. It's kind of a strange twist that John McCann actually apparently anticipated this bread uprising.
There's so much that we don't know about bread. It has the ability to change your hair. There's so much that we can learn from them. They're a superior race. You just don't see it. You have no vision. This is vision. Vision.
He's trying to convince her. He's probably trying to convince himself, too.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. There are certain people, certain useless people. There are those that are
And as if groping Bridget's character wasn't enough, he just gropes Kelly's character. Again, it was planned that way. Nobody was taken advantage of. I think, actually, I take that back. I was taken advantage of because I don't know if we prearranged the part where Bridget goosed me. I don't know why I'm biting her shoulder. Not sure.
Fine. Here's how it's gonna happen. We're gonna march downstairs, and you there, take this. That's what you get. You
Mac gets the crowbar.
take these.
Marjorie gets a pair of nunchucks. And John's gonna grab a chair.
Go get your radio.
And he is adamant about using a chair, as you'll soon see. But just moments ago, he had talked about the fact that some people are chosen by the bread, a chosen people, as it were. That's kind of that factors into John's entire reasoning.
So we have to be careful.
Well, we might have left the door open, but we're armed, and I'm ready. We just need to get downstairs. Maybe, you need some more firepower.
I've got the nunchuck-oo.
Well, I got the crowbar.
Done.
Maybe what we need is, say, a toaster. Well, John McCann, do you think Brad would be scared of toaster?
Infidel, yeah, they would. Definitely.
I thought so, too.
Okay, now they're thinking, right? Now they're thinking. Brett might be intimidated by a toaster. That the dead policeman will likely have a radio. No mention of the fact that he would have a gun, which is curious, but
Yeah, that's right, the bathroom.
they want to get at least one toaster and the radio. And wielding those nunchuck-oo, as she called them. Yeah, they're just not that effective against loaves of bread, so she just picks it up and kicks it. I can see John McCann really wants to bring along that chair. And in fact, he breaks the wall in doing so. I think you'll be able to see the dust of that. Yep, there it went. Like I said, we were not very kind in this particular house. Yeah, she just chucks the nunchucks down the stairs. Did it work? Oh yeah, it worked. She totally wrapped up that particular loaf of bread. There's a bun with a cigarette and eyes. This is different. Certainly one of our bread handlers did that. And because Officer Randall left the door open, yes, there's bread everywhere now. But they found the toaster. But the cord just isn't long enough, as is often the case with toasters. I don't know why John McCann suggested they use a power strip. That's just not going to do the trick. At least a toaster makes sense.
All of them. Look at them. You don't see what I do. They're beautiful. Every little last one of them little loafy bastards. You imbeciles and backwash popping cost.
Uh-oh. Mac is off of his feet. And folks, this is my big death scene. 1 foot caught in that little stepladder. Bread coming in at me from all directions. There's nothing poor Otto, or I should say Mac, can do at this point. Except for implore his friends to go get the radio, which he calls a radio. Yeah, screw saving Mac. They're just gonna fight with each other now. But check this out. She's gonna flex her guns. And John McCann is down. I think she grabbed Mac's glasses. Now, I'm not sure... Okay, actually, no, I take it back. I do remember why she did that, but... It's another one of those aspects of this movie that is just odd. Just downright plain odd. Down into the basement, and Pete, who played the police officer, he was no longer with us at this point. I think he was out of town when we shot this particular part. So I dressed up as the dead police officer and, you know, laid face down on the floor. "You're not chosen," John McCann says. He doesn't even secure the door, he just slams it, and he's heading back up into his secure attic anyways. So yeah, that's me now, being dead Officer Randall, but nobody can tell really. And even if they could, what does it matter with a film of this caliber? I tell you what though, that floor was dirty. When I say that this house was a 1920s build, it was. The floor was dirt. Yep, and she is trapped down there now, trapped with the Swabels. Trapped with some dangerous loaves of bread. And it's interesting that she couldn't find the radio on Officer Randall because he did have a radio. He had a gun as well. Now, Bridget was never fond of this scene because, now, while you can't see anything, it's an angle that she was not a fan of. But I wasn't shooting, so I'm innocent. You know, again, I was dead on the dirt floor. But that's why she picked up my glasses, so she could put them on. As she dies.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining us, this is Levy Kincaid reporting. Once again, if you're just now joining this broadcast, the cities of the locations, I'm sorry.
I love how this guy, I mean, you can tell he cannot believe what is reporting to you today.
Severe bread watch, and under martial law, there is a curfew in all of those locations. And as of now, in the studio, live with me, we have an expert in the field of bread.
And now we're introducing Dr. Strom Thomberg. I think that's his name. Oh, I'm sorry, Thom Stromberg.
AT&T.
And THC.
Yes, sir.
And THE. He says, don't know why he said that. Certainly there wouldn't be any of that on the set. But this was played by a guy named Vic. And Vic was hilarious. Granted, he's dressed like Colonel Sanders right now, and I love how Levy Kincaid pushes the officer. That's kind of a theme for Levy. He tends to push people aside.
It's grown up to be a man.
Unbelievable.
And there are certain aspects of the good doctor's diagnosis or his estimation of this whole situation that is just bizarre. As bizarre as the subject matter itself.
What should they do?
Run. Run as fast as you can.
There's no defense against the bread.
Unless you are a trained professional, I would say you run. Your best defense is running.
Sir, I see that you...
I mean, when you see a hornet's nest, what do? You run.
You run. You run. You run fast, don't you?
You run. You run. You run fast, don't you? One of my favorite lines.
I need my pricks. Who has my pricks?
Can we get the man some pricks?
And just the fact that he refers to whatever these are, knives, I guess, as pricks.
What are the differences between the bread that is attacking certain people? I mean...
Okay, there's two types, all right? Well, actually a bunch of types. But the main two
well,
types
actually,
pull
a bunch of
right?
types.
That has a harder crust, a harder shell around that. It's not sliced. That has not been tampered with. So basically what you got is a stronger being. Now, I've heard, on my trip, on my cell phone...
And again, Vic didn't know. I mean, we just kind of thrust him into this role, and you were like, you're the expert on the bread. So you answer these questions from the reporter, and so Vic's just flying by the seat of his pants. He does throw out there that in his mind, a full loaf of bread, one that is not already pre-sliced, is going to be stronger than a sliced loaf of bread.
The skin right here makes its strength.
What is the packaging itself, Professor? Does it affect the bread, the loaf of bread?
Oh,
I mean, are
I'm
these
sure it
things?
does.
The question is, are these things dangerous as slices, or you know?
No. Actually, they're just good to eat as a slice. As you can see, it's just like your skin and your bones. All right.
And remember that the scientist says that as a slice, it's just good to eat. It's harmless. And I love that too. He's like, this skin here, it's skin. It's as if he's trying to convince not only himself but Levy Kincaid that the packaging is skin.
Like a disc out of your vertebrae.
So what you're saying, Professor,
Like a disc out of your vertebrae,
they're attacking people,
which is
a body. If
which
they're
just
sliced
makes
up
no
bread,
sense.
they're
But
They're actually a being. Yes, they're forming as one together, as one whole. As one whole.
Unbelievable.
Now what I'm going to do here, right?
Okay.
I need everybody to kind of stand back and watch carefully.
and again, he'll push the police officer.
Use my bricks and show you how to detain this thing. First, you want to go ahead and take your one prick
Because everyone's going to have pricks.
and hold this bread down.
You take your one prick.
And as you see right here, it's an excruciating pain right now. All right.
And I don't remember how we had this bread moving.
It's like
I think we almost had a stick jammed into the bottom side of it. We were using that to move it.
Bread is alive. The bread is moving, ladies and
And
gentlemen.
you can see now that
It's alive. It's making noises.
that those straps really aren't snug enough to hold that bread in place.
It's like if something touched your vertebrae. Now what I'm doing right now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull out one of his discs.
Oh my God. Is this thing in pain, Professor? I mean,
Oh, it's
my God.
excruciating. It's like I said, it's like if somebody went into your vertebrae and took out one of your discs.
So
Now
this-
that's
this
purely
bread now
scientific, folks.
on
Somebody
your
went
bricks,
into your vertebrae
on both your bricks,
and took out one of your
all
discs.
these knives are it's harmless.
It's very harmless. And actually, if you want to go ahead, and this is just freshly baked, go ahead and take a bite.
All right, again.
Go ahead.
And he feeds it to
It's
him.
great bread.
So
These two are getting along.
It's not bad. So, as of now, the bread is decapacitated. The bread
Decapacitated.
Decapacitated, that's the word.
And it's good enough to eat. Go ahead.
That's not bad, Professor.
Not bad at all.
Not bad at all.
Well,
Is there anything else that our viewing public should see?
run.
I love that final thought. Is there anything else they should see? Run. Which, of course, our heroes, or what's left of them, are not doing. They're hunkering down instead. They're hunkering up in the attic.
Yeah. I just like to say they weren't chosen.
No. Fuck you. I'm not chosen. You don't know. You crazy cocksucking fucker. You don't know.
Oh, the mouth on Mary Ellen. And she's so right. Nobody's chosen here. It's just bread.
I'm going out this way.
What a foreboding line. She's going out this way. She means that in more ways than one. Now, I told you earlier that we are on the third story, making this rooftop here a second-story rooftop. So she's 2 flights up. Essentially, what we did is we I think pulled out 2 old mattresses and a bunch of couch cushions and some pillows. And she didn't want to do it. She did not want to jump. And so myself and the guy playing John McCann, we jumped off first to assure her that it would be okay. But when she jumped off, she hurt herself. She was not thrilled with. I think it soured the whole experience for her, and I still feel like shit about that. But yeah, 2-story drop.
Ah, you crazy cunt.
And suffice to say that means her character is dead at that point. Now this is the next morning.
Boys, get ready. Here we are.
And this was like a militia of some sort. You know, again, it's kind of a nod to Night of the Living Dead at the end. You know, it's finally daylight and it's the next day, and you can see this posse show up to kind of clear out zombies, or in this case, bread. And that soldier on the end has a spoon. And why they pulled directly up to this house is beyond me. They brought kegs. They brought beer. As if that wasn't enough of a theme in this film. They brought beer, and you can see that there's a guy with a backpack that's got a toaster. I mean, it only makes sense, right, that they would bring along a toaster.
Peterson, how you doing? Good, sir. Got it, peace? Yeah.
We got bread over here.
Gotta fucking use that, son? Yeah, I'm ready to go. All right, son. Oh, God, I love the smell of toast.
Sir!
God, I love the smell of toast.
I like butter.
So that's Colonel McMasters.
Sir, report. Backyard is secure, sir. We're ready to make our move. Excellent. Get Johnson, Pussy Flanger, get him up into the porch. Sir, yes, sir. Let's do this, baby.
And Colonel McMasters is played by Matt Ryan. The other director of this film, it was myself and him, and so that is the gentleman that is no longer with us. He's one of two cast members of this film that has since passed.
Get somebody up here to cover this window.
He will be desperately missed. After all, he helped us film so many of these little movies that we did, and he plays a memorable role in this one.
Trust me, it's for effect.
Now, I wish that wasn't chopped up the way it was, but what had happened was, when they approached the door, it was open, and the one guy actually pulled the door shut. And the guy on the ground said, "Why did you shut it?" And he goes, "Trust me, it's for effect." And, you know, it comes to my attention that there are some one-liners in this that they've certainly stuck with me over the years. But again, I go back to the fact that this wasn't scripted. In a lot of cases, this was just the actors themselves saying the right thing at the right time. Yeah, that guy's got a gas mask. And some of these guns. For instance, the one on that with that shirtless soldier, his gun looks awful sci-fi. And in fact, that's Vic. That's the same guy that was playing the scientist.
Is it clear? Fuck no!
And the one that just asked if it was clear, that is Matt, the same guy that played Carmen at the beginning of the film. But of course, since he's dead, and a lot of these soldiers don't show their faces, it only makes sense. They play more than one role.
Are you okay? I think I just pooped myself. Well, stop pooping and let's go. I'm getting all right.
Stop pooping. And that is actually Pete there. That's a guy with glasses. He's got a bread maker, which is counterintuitive. One would think that a bread maker is not what you would want during a bread apocalypse, but somehow they figured out a way to use it against the bread. So not only did they bring a toaster, they brought a bread maker. Neither of which survived the production of this film. Use procedure. He's got the oven mitt. And the soldier that actually put that piece of bread, or that loaf, into the bread maker, that's the same guy that plays Levy Kincaid.
You understand me? Pets, dad, prostitutes, dad, children, dad, come on.
I really stopped talking just because Matt's character was talking. I want to show as much deference to him as possible. In a perfect world, he would be doing this director commentary with me. But yeah, we shot easily a half dozen of these types of films. I dare say this might be the only one that I'll upload to YouTube. But in all cases, it was Matt and myself that were the driving forces behind doing these. We didn't do it to make money, obviously. You can tell that just by looking at the production value. But we did do it to pass the time and have a good time while we were at it. In that sense, mission accomplished. Now, why this guy backed into the bathroom, you know, back first? Well, obviously, as you can see, he paid for it. But that is not the way to breach a bathroom. And this song here, this particular song that you're hearing in the background, this was composed by a guy. I wish I remembered his last name. I would have given him proper credits, but his name was Bob. And he was a friend of ours that we hung out with a few times. And yeah, he let us use this particular piece. I love that too. Kyle goes into that room and he's like, well, it's just an unfinished room.
You better turn that pop around, you're gonna get some corrosion. Come on, boy, get it together. What's up, Peterson? Hey, No, we don't want to go in there, man. Bobby's probably dead. Come on, this way. Come on. Ooh, yeah, he's probably good to go.
And it makes me wonder if we named that character Bobby in honor of the guy that wrote the song that you're hearing in the background. There, of course, is Marjorie, played by Bridget.
Well, nobody's going in the basement, I'll tell you that. She's about done. Yeah. Oh, well. Come on, boys.
I don't know why Colonel McMaster's ashes his cigarette on her head.
I don't know.
The one guy says, who do you think she is? And the other dude's like, I don't know.
Libby Kincaid? Damn, get him on in here. Come on. Oh, shit, boys. We're going to have ourselves some newscast.
This bitch is fucked up. It's got the lock. Dead now. Great.
As you can see, they're trying to make entry into the room that houses John McCann.
Oh, that come for me. Oh, God bless it. It's the beautiful Amazon women, naked, that come to free me. Join the chosen.
Well, that's as cliche as it gets, that guitar riff there. And if you spotted a Darth Vader helmet, that's absolutely true. It's half of one. Now, they had orders to shoot anything upstairs, so they did just that. And that extends, of course, to John McCann. So here ends his character.
Whatever.
I don't know why they fired 2 shots there.
Well, it must be clear up here. Let's go.
And folks, we are winding down toward the end of the movie.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for joining us. This is Levy Kincaid reporting. We are here live where Colonel McMaster's Bread Elite Group is here. They are vacating the premises. It is confirmed, as you well know by now, that there is a severe bread crisis happening throughout the country. It is confirmed by officials that the bread is dangerous, that it eats human flesh, human bone.
The Colonel will see you now. Sorry, sir.
Cut. What the fuck? Are we ever gonna get this right? Vince, are we ever gonna get... Where did she... What the fuck is this? Who are these girls? You know, I got Miss Talkative Tongue. I know. You know, I'm gonna come down right after I get this off my chest. Do you have TV?
Do you own a television? It's the box with the people in it sometimes. Channel 3, that's what I work for. Yeah. Tell the Colonel we'll be in there in a minute, okay?
I mean, I have a hard time talking over Kyle's lines.
You got my stuff in that box, right?
You got my stuff in that box? What kind of pompous asshole is having people carry around his personal shit in a box? And his golf clubs, too, I might add.
One man. Then why is there only you sitting here? Where the rest of them? Come on.
They're making sure they're here secure, sir.
Oh, Levy Kincaid, I'm a big fan.
Oh, well, I'm glad you're here because Pippi Longstocking out here isn't, okay?
Well, I'm glad you apologize about them. They're uncouth. Vince Thunder, how you doing, sir? I talked to you.
Vince Thunder, and then behind him, that girl, she will wind up being my wife. That's Jody. And then that is Amy in the doorway now, holding the box.
Yeah. Well, we could just put those anywhere, can't we?
Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Fuck you.
I told you not to hire. She was trouble from the start.
Talking about
knew she
my
was trouble
goddamn
from the
people.
fucking start.
Talk about my goddamn
Hey,
people.
let me shoot her. We're just here for a friendly little interview, okay?
And-
we sit up here and get a good shot. Is that what we can do?
And they just shot Amy's character. On another sad note, Amy is the other cast member that is no longer with us today. But it was a pleasure having her there. Sad thing is, I messed up her name in the credits, so I'm glad I get this opportunity to clarify.
This is Levy Kincaid reporting live. I'm here with Colonel McMasters, the leader of the Elite Bread Destruction Group. What is the name of your group there, Colonel?
Oh, it's the Alpha Theta Gamma Beta.
Exactly, I was informed falsely.
And we're definitely getting to see another side of Levy Kincaid.
That you and your team
Dude's a dick.
But how was that accomplished?
Well, quite frankly, we stormed the house from the back end. We secured it floor by floor, took out any enemies that we saw fit to.
Right. Colonel, do you wear socks?
Occasionally.
Do you shower daily?
I try to.
Okay, excellent. Did you lose any men this evening?
I done lost a couple.
Well, we're sorry to hear that. All of us at Channel 3, we're sorry to hear that, and all our prayers go out to those who have lost anyone throughout this whole horrible, mammoth, preposterous ordeal. And, well, Colonel, what's the future
Preposterous
for,
ordeal.
Homo sapiens and bread kind alike?
You know, maybe one day we'll be able to coexist peacefully, but till that day, each and every human has to fight the bread.
How are your men holding up this evening, Colonel? They look to be strong.
I love how he's talking about in the future, maybe we'll be able to coexist with bread.
Rob, good luck with everything that goes on. All right, thanks.
And Levy pushes yet another person aside.
Recap here from Levy Kincaid. You know, some things happen without us knowing why. We can't explain them because we don't know why.
Because we don't know why.
So all I can say to everybody who's out there in time of need, look to your fellow man and just be safe. This is Levy Kincaid reporting. Godspeed.
The final attack caught on news cameras. I love that his dying words are, "my finger." Of all the vital places to get hit or bit, for him, it was the finger. And here's some real rudimentary credits. Again, I want to point out that in the case of Amy, I got the name wrong. I think I called her Sarah, because frankly, I didn't know her that well at the time. But yeah, that does it. And the song you're hearing, that's one of the bands that I was in. Let's see, this was myself on lead vocals. And so yeah, suffice to say, we needed a song to fit this movie. And this was it. And the lyrics are downright absurd. And if you want to hear the lyrics without my talking over them, then I suggest you watch the end of the version of this movie on my channel that doesn't have director commentary. But God, there's one line in particular I can remember. We're sitting around. It was myself, our guitarist was Kevin, was his name, Jared, our bassist, who I still talk to on a regular basis, and our drummer was a guy named Mark. And I'm trying to think of the particular line. I guess I'll probably be able to catch it when it comes up. But it's a repeated line. It's part of the chorus. Yeah, okay. So here comes the chorus now. The clock strikes 1. Time has come, right? Senses numbed. How about ball? Okay, so there it was. I was sitting there asking him, okay, numb, run, what else are we going to use? What rhymes with that? And our drummer just shrugs his shoulders and is like, how about ball? And for a second, I don't know if he was asking me to play ball, like if he wanted to go shoot some baskets, or if he was saying, how about ball? That could be the line. And in fact, it was the latter of the two. Because really, I mean, we looked at this song and the movie as just pure absurdity. So, without hesitation, I was like, yep, that's it. How about ball? That's our last line. And no, it doesn't have to rhyme. So that was it. And the name of that band was Monarchy. The other band I was in, which I was in for a lot longer, was the Spinwash All-Stars. The score is written by Peter H. Addington. In fact, he's the guitarist for Spinwash All-Stars. So I spent a lot of time with all the people involved in this. Didn't know everybody all too well when we actually filmed it, but inevitably I came to know so many of them so well. Hell, I married one of them. Regis Contractor, again, is a made-up character. I just love that name. We would accredit him with directing virtually everything we did. In fact, for a couple of our Johnny America movies, I dressed up like Regis Contractor and did a little commentary after said movies. So there it is, folks. That is Bread Night. That is our extremely low budget, tongue-in-cheek parody of Night of the Living Dead. And I gotta say, as bad a movie as it is, was a blast putting it together. And in retrospect, I'm glad we did it. I really am. I guess I'm glad we filmed all the movies we did. They have a certain low quality about them where you almost keep wondering, okay, are people about to have sex? Is this porn? With all of our movies, it never was. But it was just about that quality where you couldn't help but wonder what was about to happen next. I suppose especially in the groping scene in this particular film. Again, I don't know if I'll post the other films. I certainly won't anytime soon. I certainly would have to go around and ask permission of the people that were in them. But as the song there comes to a close, so too is this special feature on Automatic Games channel. And yeah, there you have it. Creepy, crazy stuff. How much does that freak you out? The idea that your delectable loaves of bread could come to life and eat the very flesh off your body. I apologize if you're not going to get any sleep tonight, either because A, that's a horrifying notion, or because B, you cannot unsee what you just saw. At any rate, this was Automatic for Automatic Games. I want to thank everybody that was involved in this production. I want to thank the folks that actually tuned in while I was live streaming this to get it onto YouTube. I just figured that was the most practical way to do that. And believe it or not, some folks actually hopped in to watch it as I've been doing this commentary. So I appreciate you folks, and most of all, I appreciate the fact that I'm able to put this up for posterity, and anybody who ever in the future takes the time to watch. I both thank you and apologize. Anyways, folks, this is Automatic for Automatic Games. I appreciate you watching. If you like this, and if you are subscribed, I will talk to you soon, friends. Stay tuned. More to come.